Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. I am Ruth Van Alstyne from Hope at Hand. Hope at Hand is a local nonprofit that provides poetry therapy programming for at-risk youth in North Florida. We also host Jack's Poetry Fest every April, which is free of charge and funded by a variety of arts and culture grants, as well as private donations. Um, During the presentation, I'm going to upload QR codes to direct you to donation and survey pages, just in case you leave early. So right now, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Michelle Flores, who's going to be leading today's workshop.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, let's see. Okay, just want to make sure that the right screen is sharing. And there we go. Okay, so sorry about that. Okay. So hello, my name is Michelle Flores, and for those of you who don't know, I am a local Jacksonville poet and educator, and today we're going to be doing a quick session on astrology poetry or zodiac poetry. This is one of my favorite topics for poetry. I think astrology can be a really fun way to play around with imagery and illusion, especially if you're interested in mythology and celestial bodies and things like that. So if you were here for my Gothic poetry workshop, you know that I'm very image-based as a poet, and I think we're going to create a lot of really interesting things. So here's our agenda for today. The whole process should take about an hour, and we are going to build on all of these exercises that we create. So we're going to start first with a warm-up, then an imagery exercise, then a personality exercise. If we have time, we'll look at an example of a poem that technically isn't an astrology poem, but you can see a lot of elements of astrology within the poem. And then we will have some time to write based off a few different prompts that I give you all. And so just keep this in mind. Each of these exercises should take approximately 10 minutes. Sometimes it'll be a little bit more, sometimes it'll be a little bit less based off of the needs that you all have as the students for today. So let's start first with a warm up, and this will take us about 10 minutes. In order to complete this warm up, you should know what your big three are. And so in astrology terms, this refers to your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising signs. If you have no idea what these are, you can do one of two things, right? So you can do a quick Google search, look up your big three based off your birthday. If you are interested in maybe downloading any apps, there's an app called CoStar that's really helpful in finding this information. Or you can do what might be the more fun option and just make it up and just look up the 12 astrological signs, choose the three that are the most interesting to you, and complete this exercise. So with this exercise, for each of your signs, think about the element that your sign is, the color, the planet that it's ruled by, and then any personality traits. So for my example, I'm a Leo sun, Virgo moon, Aquarius rising, which means I have a big personality and I'm very stubborn. It's a great combination to have. But so I basically went ahead and broke down each of my signs based off of these things. So the elements of each sign, the colors that are associated with the signs, the planets associated with the signs, and some of these personality traits. Okay, so I have done enough talking at this point. I'm going to give us 10 minutes now to do some research, to start jotting down some notes, and come up with as many details as you can for each of your big three. After 10 minutes, then we will share out. Go ahead and get started. Okay, let's take about 3 more minutes. I see we've got some Scorpios in the group. I like to think of the Scorpios as the Leos of water signs, but that might be a hot take. As you all wrap up your warm up, feel free to either drop in the chat what you feel comfortable sharing. So you can share your big three, or you can just focus on one of your signs. Or you can come off mute and share some of your big three.
Hello, this is Mariah. Is it okay to share?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, I didn't want to just jump in. What I found really interesting was that the rising sign seemed to, like all my life, I've identified with my sun sign of Libra. But when I did the personality traits for the rising sign, it actually seemed to better define my personality, which I thought was really interesting. I was like, oh, I didn't even know about this part of me. Well, I knew about it, but I just didn't would I put it in a box the same way I did with the sun sign of Libra. So thank you for that exercise.
I love that. Yeah, that is something that I have found with my research as well. I am a Leo, but I've always felt like I'm an unconventional Leo. And then when I look at Aquarius traits, I feel like that much better fits my personality. But my Virgo moon really comes in whenever I need to like build structure or routine into my life. So it is interesting how sometimes different parts of your chart uh, feed into different aspects of your personality. Okay. And then Angie, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, oftentimes if you look up your birthday and the location that you were born, if you happen to know that information, that is what you would need to find your um, other signs. And then I think you also need to know the time that you were born. So a lot of times when you enter in all that information, either to an app or do a Google search, that kind of information can come up for you. Okay, so Virgo sun with a Virgo rising and a moon sign of Taurus. That's very earthy. I love that. So stubborn tendency towards perfection, being slowly dismantled. That's a good observation as well, Mariah. The colors corresponding with your favorite colors. Awesome. Okay, so hopefully at this point you have a pretty good basis for some ideas of like visuals and colors and elements you can incorporate into your poems. I see we've got some Capricorns with a moon in Sagittarius and a Pisces rising. So Chris, your chart is a little bit like mine where you've got a little bit of everything. Um, and then an Aries sun with both a Capricorn moon and rising. Got it. And I know for those of you who might be having trouble finding elements and planets and things like that, I know I usually just did research on planets associated with Capricorn or planets associated with Virgo to find that information. Capricorn sun, Libra sun, Virgo moon, Capricorn rising. There's a lot of Capricorns in this group. That's very interesting. Okay, we've got another Leo and a Cancer moon with a Virgo rising. Awesome. Parv, I see your hand is raised.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Do you know what? Until I didn't add in my date of birth, place of born, it didn't make sense. God, it is so spookily accurate. It really scared me. Really, I find it really freaky. I don't really follow like only like generally. But they said not to have alcohol, which I don't touch. I love water, which I drink a lot of. And then it says they never fluff their words. They say what they mean. That is so true. I always thought I got that trait from my mother. And then they said about how your facial features, you have very high cheekbones. I do have very high cheekbones. I'm supposed to be tall. I'm not. I'm short. And they like white. I don't, because I associate white with death. I actually like black. And then apparently I start my day with sunlight. I love sunshine and I love meditation. And I share my Capricorn sun rising with Sir Isaac Newton, Stephen Hawking, and Cary Grant and Denzel Washington, which is strange.
Very interesting.
Yes.
Love that. It is also fun to see what celebrities we share some of these traits with. I know
Yes.
that I am a Leo sun and I was born on the same day as Annie Oakley, Alfred Hitchcock, and
Wow.
there's some others in there, but it makes sense because I really love horror movies. So I like to think that that's part of it. Okay, and Maxwell, we have a Scorpio sun and rising, but a moon in Virgo. That is a very stubborn chart. I admire that a lot. Okay, so now that we've got a base level understanding of where our charts are and a little bit of information that we can pull from, let's jump into our first exercise. So this is an imagery-based exercise. This one will take us about 5 minutes. You're going to select two of your big three in any combination. So for example, in my chart, I have Leo sun, Virgo moon, Aquarius rising. I would pick, when I did this exercise, I did Leo sun and my Virgo moon. And then for those two signs, create images by combining or comparing the two. So when I did mine, because it was a fire sign and an earth sign, I tried to think of what is both fiery and earthy. So I thought of campfires, I thought of lava and magma, I thought of maybe like a building that's burning. And so just try to create a list of as many images as you can that combine two of your signs together. For those of you who don't know your other sign, so you only know your sun sign, you can just pick out of any of the 12 zodiac signs, pick any two combinations that sound the most interesting to you. So I'm going to give us about 5 minutes to do this. And then after 5 minutes, feel free to start sharing out. Okay. As we wrap up this exercise, feel free to come off mute or drop your images in the chat, anything you came up with that you feel stands out to you in particular. Okay, so first from Max, we have Scorpio and Virgo, which is a great combination for imagery. So ocean waves crashing into rocks. Ooh, a scab from a fresh wound. That's interesting. Um, the colors of maroon and brown, and then the planets are Pluto and Mercury, which are like definitely at extreme lengths because one is all the way at the end of the solar system and one is right next to the sun. So that vastness, that emptiness, I love that. Um, Awesome. So we have from Mariah, symmetrical corpse, a skull with a bow, a Hot Topic shirt. Shout out to all the Hot Topic kids out there. I love it. Very fun. Okay. And so if you attended my Gothic poetry workshop, you know that I like to work with sort of juxtaposition a lot. I think it makes for really interesting texture within poems. And so that's really what this exercise is working towards, is getting you to think about opposites and how they might actually be more connected than we might realize, which it looks like a lot of you have come up with. So now we're going to jump into our next exercise. This one is based off of emotion. So you're going to use the same two signs you just used. So if you're me, you're using your Leo sun, your Virgo moon. If you're Max, you're using your Scorpio sun and your Virgo moon. And so using those same signs, analyze the personality traits of each of those signs, and then create a list of emotions that those traits reflect. So I know, for example, Leos, we tend to be very bombastic, but Virgos tend to be very analytical. And so I would make that list down the line, different ways that these emotions present themselves. If you can think of a way to combine emotions, that could also be a really great exercise for this. So, for example, being a Leo sun and a Virgo moon, that might create a lot of anxiety because while I do enjoy performing, I also really enjoy being behind the scenes. And so that level of anxiety that comes with performing can be more of a challenge for me. So take about 5 minutes now, go ahead and list as many as emotions as you can consider for those two signs, and then we'll share out. Okay, as you all wrap up this exercise, feel free to start dropping some of those personality traits into the chat. So I see from Mariah, relishes every side of the soul, empathetic, inquisitive of the heart, love as a means of transformation. I love that because I think a Virgo would be more like work as a means of transformation, right? Appreciative of a beautiful betrayal. So loving that sort of bittersweet moment um, when you experience a heartbreak. I think a lot of those emotions are very rich for poetry. Okay, and then Max has vindictive, determined, restless, yearning, stimulated. I love yearning. I talk about yearning a lot with my seniors as a way to capture character motivation. I think yearning is such an important emotion that, again, can be really rich for poetry. Okay. And if you are still looking up some emotions, making your list, feel free to continue dropping ideas in the chat. I'm going to go ahead and move us along. So this is a poem by Alice Fogel. And in this poem, I think there's a lot of zodiac elements that can be referenced, even just in the title. So I'm going to read this poem out loud, and I just want you to use this as sort of a backdrop, a way to consider how you can structure your own poems once we start writing in just a few. So this is called Balance by Alice B. Fogel. Balance is everything is the only way to hold on. I've weighed the alternatives, the hold as harbor. It isn't safe to let go. But consider the hover, choices made, the moment between later and too late. Hesitation is later, regret too late. You can't keep turning and turning or expecting to return. This earth is not a wheel. It is a rock that erodes, mountain by mountain. And I have been too soft like sandstone, but there is a point where I stand without a story, immutable and moved, solid as a breath of winter air. I have seen my death, and I know it is my neighbor, my brother, my keeper in my life. I am going to keep trying for the balance, remembering the risks and the value of extremes, that experience teaches the length of allowable lean, that it is easier and wiser to balance a stone as if on one toe, though it weigh 100 pounds, than to push it back against the curve of its own world. So, as we look at this poem, I want you to think, what zodiac elements do you see being referenced? And how are these images and actions interacting? What themes or ideas are resonating with you? Okay, so yes, there's definitely a lot of Libra air and there's a lot of earth imagery within the poem. So, what themes are being conveyed by combining these images together? I love Yasmin. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. But this idea that the status quo, though desirable, is not safe. Yes, exactly. And I think that's a very Libra trait to have, right? Like this desire to go beyond expectation. And Mariah, yeah, that imagery stood out to me quite a bit. This idea of solid breath. something that is effervescent and that's going to fade. But in winter, for some reason, we can see it, right? It does become more solid. So thinking about how you can also use seasons to convey some of these ideas within your poem. Okay, so we're now going to head into the last exercise. And on this exercise, I am throwing a lot of information at you. So I have a list of prompts that are directly related to each sign. And so go ahead and look through this list, and you should see one that correlates to at least one of your signs. So for Aries, Aries are bold, so write a poem that makes a clear, bold statement. For Tauruses, Tauruses are considered one of the most resilient signs. Write a poem about what resiliency means to you. For Geminis, Geminis tend to be hyper thoughtful with their words. Challenge yourself to write a poem expressing a vulnerable and complicated feeling using as few words as possible. For Cancers, Cancers can be self-protective and hide in their shelves, so break free. Write a poem describing yourself not physically to someone you don't know. For Leos, we are perseverant, but sometimes stubborn, and we don't like to fail. So consider this challenge. Write a love poem to something you have failed at. This one is really hard for me. And then for Virgos, Virgos tend to be practical and logical. So strip away that bit with a free write. Just let your stream of consciousness guide you, and don't think about the mechanics. Don't edit anything as you go. Just write and see what happens. For Libras, Libras are scales, so they enjoy balance and harmony. Time to tip the scales. Write a poem about something that is chaotic, but make the structure of the poem balanced. So the content is going to be all over the place, but the poem itself looks very balanced. For Scorpios, write about something poisonous in your life. Can you be poisonous in your life, or is there someone or something that is poisonous towards you? How does it impact you? For Sagittarius, you are born explorers who find boundaries constricting. So write a poem about your relationship to boundaries that are set on you. Are these physical boundaries, emotional boundaries, financial boundaries, and so on? For Capricorns, which I know there's quite a few in this group, you are known for navigating between the emotional and physical realms. So explore an idea by writing a poem about a powerful emotion as if it were physically happening to you. So you are feeling that emotion in a physical way. For Aquarius, you are passionate about social change. So write about what social change means to you. Why is it important? How does it come about? What would you change? And then last but not least, Pisces. Pisces live in a world of ideas. So balance between the world of fantasy and reality. Write a poem about the line between the two worlds. Okay, so I know that is a lot of information. If anyone needs me to go back to a slide or wants me to reread a prompt, let me know. I'll be more than happy to do so. But when you take this prompt, this is sort of like the basis for your poem. You're then going to take the next 15 to 20 minutes and just start writing. You can use some of the information you gathered from the first few exercises we did and incorporate some of those details with these prompts. You can also just start from scratch if you feel like you're warmed up and you're ready to explore with the prompt that has been provided for you. So I'm going to go ahead and mute myself unless you need me to read something out again. Take the next 15 minutes and use this time to write. Awesome. It looks like some of you are wrapping up some of your poems. I'm really thankful for some of the feedback. I'm glad that you all found it to be an illuminating experience. And if you feel like you are ready and would like to share a little bit about maybe some lines you created or some ideas that came up as you were writing, feel free to either come off mute or drop it in the chat. Okay, so Mariah saw that coagula found from Sagittarius lack of boundaries. Mariah, if you want to talk a little bit more about that, feel free to either come off mute or explain in the chat. I'm curious as to what that means.
Yeah, hi there. Those are terms in alchemistry. It's the idea of dissolving and then reconstituting
Ooh.
as a new thing. And I realized part of my, like, I have these impulses in Libra as love and in Sagittarius of not having boundaries, to want to have this merging, like this dissolving in love. And it was just very, I think, from a psychological standpoint, like I need to run to my therapist and go talk about this. But you know what I mean? I think it's really good for poetry because this is a universal experience of wanting both to lose the self in love and the fight to maintain one's identity within this kind of merging. And as a Libra, like I'm standing at this fulcrum point of standstill because I'm weighing these two things. So it was just very rich psychologically. I feel like it's something I'm going to continue to explore in poetry, but what I got out was really more of a exploration of ideas, I think is the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think really when I created this workshop, that was for me a big goal, was just to get to know ourselves better as writers through the use of astrology, which we can have feelings on whether or not astrology is real, right? I'm a very skeptical person by nature, but I do think anything that pushes you to interrogate yourself and think about things from a different perspective can be really helpful, particularly as a poet and as you explore your voice as a poet.
Yes,
so
and I
thank you.
think we're really working in the like the Jungian field of working with these archetypes. Thank you so much, Michelle.
Thank you. Parv, I see you've had your hand raised for a minute. Would you like to share out?
Yes. Do you know what? This is it's really spooky and scary. I blamed my mother for my positive and negative thoughts, but now when I reflect on, right, just blame it on the bloody astrological planets. I don't. Yeah, it makes sense though. Honestly, it makes sense. I love this workshop. I didn't know what to expect. I keep an open mind with astrology, sun, moon, and stars because I love them. But the poem is very small. I'll do it quickly. Capricorn, Libra rising, thrown off kilter, lost my balance, like a fish lost her scales at sea, alone, mute, unable to express love. Find the one, overprotective and suffocating. Take the wind out of his sails. Navigate alone together. I hope we're together forever. My yin, your yang, a scale, balance, peace, and harmony. I thought all blame was on my mother when it was my hapless stars.
I love that.
So
I especially love the line, like a fish lost their scales at sea. That brings up
yes.
so much imagery. I think that's a really solid kernel you've got there. That's really lovely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, let's see some more. So from Max, we have, of course, a Joan Didion reference. I am Didion's heir. I am Didion's fears. I am Bethlehem and the beast slouching towards it. I love those first lines. I am the space between Pluto and Mercury, red and ultraviolet. Oh, the chat's moving. I am the peregrinations of the tides, restlessly yearning to crash home, and the witness at the beach. Beautiful. Love the imagery you've created here. Okay, from Yasmin, I believe I saw pop up. Virgo rising, Taurus moon, cling to stability and status quo. Change refuses the demands to conform, to remain the same. Instead, it joyfully flings and things. I love that. Itself all over the place. Really lovely, Yasmin. And I love that question, Parv. Do I blame my mother or the stars? And I would argue in some ways they are the same person, right? But maybe that's a conversation for another time.
Yes, yes. A wonderful, another wonderful session with you, Michelle. I didn't know it was you again, but absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And Max, as usual, our brains are functioning on the same wavelength, I think. So
All the planets.
or the planets, right? And so for those of you who don't know, I have my contact information here. Feel free to email me, or you can follow me on Instagram. I don't really use Twitter as much anymore. And so if you have any other questions, or just if you continue with this exercise and want to show me a version of it, feel free to do so. I love collaborating. And thank you also to Hope at Hand for giving me this opportunity to lead this workshop. I hope you all, if nothing, just found a little bit more about yourselves through this process. And with that, Ruth, feel free to take it away.
Yes, hi, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming. Your feedback matters. And let me just get this up real quick. So if you would use this QR code to fill out a brief survey, that would be really great. And we want to thank our sponsors that help us bring these free workshops and Jack's Poetry Fest. We couldn't do that without their support, and we couldn't do our work with the poetry therapy sessions for the at-risk youth and the other things that we do with our organization. And private donations are an important part of that. And so if you were to want to do that, we'd appreciate any kind of support. This is a QR code that could take you to a link where you could do that as well. And so with that, I want to thank everyone again for coming to our workshop. And I hope to see you at the very last one that we're having, which is next Tuesday. And so be sure and sign up for that. And so have a great weekend, everyone. And thank you for coming. Thank you, Michelle, for another great workshop. Bye-bye.